Hi, everyone. Landry Etheridge here with Etheridge Counseling Group and Channing Harris, therapist, couples therapist, trauma therapist here at Etheridge Counseling Group in Charleston. Here to talk about spring cleaning for your mind. Channing, I was so excited to hear about spring cleaning for your mind. Not something I've heard of before. Definitely heard about spring cleaning, maybe like your closet, your house, your home, whatever. But spring cleaning for your mind is such an interesting concept. And a good time to start thinking about that is we're hoping temperatures start warming up here in Charleston. So talk to us a little bit about what is spring cleaning for your mind.
So similar as like spring cleaning for anything else, a closet, your yard, around your house, it's a season where a lot of people feel inclined to kind of get rid of the old and replace it with the new, kind of freshen things up. And so I thought it would be a fun time to kind of do a mental health version that just like we need to clean our spaces, we also need to make sure we're intentional to do that for our minds as well.
I love that. That's such a great reminder to kind of, we can be so external and think about all these other things, but are we taking care of what's up here? There's some things that we need to move out or bring in. What's some common like clutter that you see, or now would be a good time to start thinking about clutter to kind of get rid of or examine?
Yeah, a common one. So one of the first ones I thought about was, as we're coming off the new year, a lot of people have, found they've either, gotten some of their goals, like achieved some of their New Year's goals, or maybe none of their New Year's goals. And so, really rigid goals was the first one that popped into my mind, just given the change of the seasons, the one that we're coming out of and the one we're going into. And then, other common things are, things that affect our self-esteem and our sense of self-worth, our sense of self, things that affect our relationships overall as well. Like, do we have good relationships and good things, good connection building or poor connection building? Those were kind of the main ones that popped into my head. And along across all of those things, also just maladaptive thinking, cognitive distortions, thoughts that are maybe more harmful than helpful at times.
I love that. You mentioned goals. What are some of the dangers of maybe rigid goals? I mean, I would usually think of like goals, I would think you would want them to be rigid, or people might think you want them to be rigid. You want to really hold yourself to the standard. What do you see as the dangers of doing that?
Yeah, and I think absolutely it's great to be goal driven and motivated, but it can also be a pitfall because as humans, we can't do things perfectly all the time, 100% of the time. And so a lot of times we'll set these really seemingly simple but lofty goals starting in the new year, such as I'm going to exercise more, or, I'm going to start being more mindful. But we can really beat ourselves up when that's not always attainable every day, day in, day out. And so making sure that we enter more of a growth mindset versus rigid goals.
Okay. And I know in your recent article on this topic, you were talking about the difference between goals and habits, or rigid goals and healthy habits, something along that. Can you kind of talk to us about the difference between those two?
Yeah. And so, kind of entering that growth mindset, one of the ways that we can do that is instead of having rigid goals where it's I have to achieve this thing and it's more about getting to the finish line and less about the process. Habits are things that are automatic. They happen pretty much without us putting a bunch of thought into it, which they take time to form. But just like brushing your teeth, yes, majority of the time you brush your teeth, but there's always those days where you're sick or you're traveling or something happens. You wake up, you're late for work, you sleep through your alarm, and you don't end up brushing your teeth. And it doesn't mean that the next day you go, well, I'm never brushing my teeth again. I'm just not doing that anymore because I missed it today. And so
what's the point?
Yeah. So rigid goals that's really what can happen is we miss it one day and then it's very negative messages about ourselves and our progress. And it's like we throw the baby out with the bathwater. Instead of habits, it's more about it being a lifestyle and a growth mindset and kind of striving to always better yourself, and can lead to really positive sense of self.
Yes, that's so interesting to think about. Yeah, if you, I don't know, forget to brushing the teeth is such a good one, because you do it consistently and you really don't have a negative message about yourself if you run out the door and realize, oh my gosh, I didn't brush my teeth this morning, or whatever it might be. But if you skip the gym one day, it's like, well, what's even the point of going back? That's so interesting. What are some practical steps that people can use to start spring cleaning, or particularly around like goals and habits?
Yeah, I would say the first step is identifying, what are maybe some rigid goals that we have first off, and then thinking about, okay, how can I clean those out and maybe replace them with some more manageable small steps that like direct me toward that goal, but are manageable and achievable, and something that can be turned more into a habit that is more sustainable long term. And that we're not really setting ourselves up for failure, essentially.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much, Shani, for talking to us about this topic. It's a really important topic to be doing all year round, really. But this is such a good time to do that, because we're really entering into a new season and can really have the opportunity to start off on a good footing. So thank you so much for chatting with us about this.
Yeah, you're welcome.